The European theatre of operations. The German Panzerwaffe, despite heavy losses, was still a force to be reckoned with. Their Panther and Tiger tanks were steel predators that dominated the battlefield through a combination of thick, sloped armor and deadly, long-barreled cannons. For a German tanker, the war had become a set of rules. Rule number 1. You are slow, but you are nearly impossible to kill from the front. Rule number 2. Anything you can see, you can destroy. And rule number 3. Nothing on tracks can be faster than you. They were used to the American Shermans, numerous, reliable, but vulnerable. They had learned how to defeat them. They knew their strengths and weaknesses. But then, something began to appear on the battlefields of France, Belgium, and Germany that broke all the rules. Something that shattered their conception of tank warfare. A weapon that looked like a tank, shot like a tank, but moved at a speed they thought was impossible for a tracked vehicle. Imagine the shock of a German crew moving along a road at 20 miles per hour, suddenly seeing themselves being overtaken by an American armored vehicle, speeding across open country at 40, even 50 miles per hour. This wasn't a tank. This was the M18 Hellcat, and it brought with it a new, audacious American philosophy of war. Speed is armor. This is the story of how engineers from the Buick Motor Company created the fastest tracked beast of World War II and made German tankers look over their shoulders in terror. To understand where the Hellcat came from, you have to understand the doctrine that created it. At the beginning of the war, American High Command was horrified by the German blitzkrieg. They saw how concentrated armored spearheads broke through defensive lines and sowed chaos in the rear. Standard tanks, designed to support infantry, couldn't effectively counter this. A specialized force was needed. Mobile anti-tank units that could rapidly move across the battlefield, intercept German panzer formations, set ambushes, and destroy them. Thus, the American tank destroyer doctrine was born. The first vehicles created under this doctrine were improvisations. For example, the M3 gun motor carriage was essentially a 75mm gun mounted on the chassis of a half-track. Then came the M10 Wolverine. This was a more serious machine, built on a Sherman chassis with a powerful 3-inch gun in an open-topped turret. It was effective, but it also inherited the Sherman's drawbacks, primarily its lack of speed. The military needed something entirely different, a machine designed from the ground up for one purpose: hunting tanks. The requirements were laid out in 1941. A 76mm gun, a Christie suspension, a Wright Continental R975 engine, and a weight of no more than 14 tons. The design was given not to a tank manufacturing giant, but to a division of the General Motors Automotive Company, Buick. And this was a key decision. Buick's engineers approached the task not as tank builders, but as automotive designers. For them, the most important parameter was not armor, but mobility and the power-to-weight ratio. Their philosophy was radical for the time. The best protection is to not get hit at all. They took a 9-cylinder Continental R975 radial aircraft engine. This engine, originally designed for planes, produced between 350 and 400 horsepower. This was an enormous amount of power for a vehicle that ultimately weighed only about 17.7 tons. For comparison, the 30-ton Sherman had an engine of similar power, and the 55-ton Tiger had an engine with 600-700 horsepower. The Hellcat's power-to-weight ratio was phenomenal for its time, about 22.5 horsepower per ton. For the Sherman, this figure was about 13, and for the Tiger, about 12. But a powerful engine alone was not enough. It needed a chassis that could handle that power. And here, the Buick engineers implemented another advanced solution: an individual torsion bar suspension for each of the 5 road wheels. Unlike the standard vertical volute spring suspension, VVSS, on American tanks, torsion bars provided a much smoother ride at high speeds and allowed the vehicle's hull to be significantly lower. And finally, the main compromise that made the Hellcat so unique: the armor, or rather, its almost complete absence. To save weight and achieve the desired speed, armor was sacrificed. The frontal hull armor was only 1 inch thick. The sides and rear were even thinner, half an inch. The open-topped turret also had a thickness ranging from 1 inch to half an inch. What did this mean in practice? The M18's armor reliably protected the crew only from small arms fire and light shrapnel. Any German anti-tank gun, even a small caliber one, would punch right through the Hellcat from any distance. The 5-man crew, commander, gunner, loader, driver, and assistant driver, was fully aware of their vulnerability. They were sitting in a cardboard box with a big gun. The open turret gave them an excellent view, but it left them defenseless against artillery fire, mortars, and even hand grenades. The armament, however, was top-notch. The M18 carried the powerful 76mm M1 gun, the same one mounted on late-model Shermans. This gun was capable of penetrating the frontal armor of a Panzer IV with standard armor-piercing rounds. And when using high-velocity armor-piercing HVAP rounds with a tungsten core, it could even take on Panthers and Tigers, especially when firing at their sides. The result was an unprecedented hybrid. A light, low-profile chassis of a race car with a powerful engine and an advanced suspension, topped with a turret carrying a gun capable of killing the most formidable German predators. Officially, it was called the M18 gun motor carriage, but the troops gave it a name that perfectly captured its essence: Hellcat.
The M18's baptism by fire took place in Italy in 1944, but it truly unlocked its potential on the plains of France after the Normandy landings. Tank destroyer battalions equipped with Hellcats were not used like tanks. They did not lead frontal assaults. Their tactics were those of a wolf, not a bear. Shoot and scoot was their motto. Imagine a typical scenario. Recon reports a German tank column on the move. The M18 battalion commander looks at his map. He's not going to meet them head-on. Instead, he uses his vehicle's main advantage: speed. While the German column slowly crawls down a road, a platoon of Hellcats, racing across fields and back roads at 40 to 50 miles per hour, gets on their flank. They take up concealed positions in a forest or behind a hill. They let the enemy get within effective firing range, 800 to 1,000 yards. And then, all hell breaks loose. The first Hellcat fires, and immediately, without waiting for return fire, changes position at full speed. The second fires from another flank, a third from yet another. The German tankers are thrown into confusion. They are being attacked from multiple directions at once. Their slow turrets can't traverse fast enough. They see the muzzle flashes, but by the time they bring their powerful guns to bear, the target has already vanished. After firing a shot, an M18 would reverse back, using its low silhouette to disappear from view. This wasn't a duel. It was a slaughter. The Hellcats circled the German steel giants like a pack of predators, delivering bites and then immediately leaping back into the shadows. One of the most striking examples of the M18's effectiveness was the Battle of Araucourt in September 1944. Here, the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion faced off against German panzer brigades equipped with Panther tanks. Using fog, ambush tactics, and their phenomenal speed, the Hellcats inflicted devastating losses on the Germans, destroying dozens of Panthers for minimal losses of their own. But the Hellcats' speed wasn't just an offensive weapon. During the German Ardennes offensive, the famous Battle of the Bulge, it became a strategic advantage. When German tanks broke through the American front, it was the M18 battalions that became the High Command's fire brigade. They were rushed from one sector of the front to another with incredible speed to plug gaps in the defense. While armored divisions needed days to redeploy, a Hellcat battalion could cover 50 to 60 miles in a few hours, suddenly appearing where the Germans least expected them and disrupting their advance. But what was it like to fight inside this machine? Ask any tank destroyer veteran, and he'll tell you that service on an M18 was a mix of exhilaration and terror. The exhilaration of the speed, of the feeling of flying over the ground, of the engine's power. The terror of knowing that only half an inch of steel stood between you and an enemy 88mm shell. Hellcat crews were a special breed. They were daredevils who bet on speed and tactical skill, not on thick armor. They knew that a mistake in their line of work meant instant death, but they also knew that they held a weapon that could change the rules of the game.
The M18 Hellcat was produced in a quantity of about 2,500 units. After the war, the tank destroyer doctrine was deemed redundant. It was believed that regular tanks should be fast and powerful enough to deal with enemy tanks. The Hellcats were withdrawn from U.S. Army service. Was it perfect? No. Its armor was dangerously thin. The open-topped turret made it vulnerable. But it wasn't meant to be perfect. It was a specialized tool, created for a specific job, and it performed that job brilliantly. The M18 Hellcat was the apotheosis of American engineering thought during World War II. It proved that in tank warfare, there was more than just the formula of shell versus armor. There was also speed, intelligence, and audacity.
And for the German tankers, accustomed to being the kings of the battlefield, the roar of a radial engine and the green, blurry silhouette overtaking them on the battlefield became a shocking reminder that war never plays by the rules, especially when those rules are being written by automotive engineers from Detroit.